Hi, my name is Jordan Hill, and this is my lesson plan that I am calling personal poetry reading. That would be in the language arts category, poetry specifically, and it is for the third grade. So, the learning objectives that I would hope this lesson would have is students will be able to write a short personal poem and then have a poetry read in the classroom to learn about the art and simplicity of poetry and to help with public speaking in small groups. So, the preparation for new learning to prepare students to learn about poetry and how to share their poetry vocally, a YouTube video of William Carlos Williams reading his poem, The Red Wheelbarrow, will be shown to the class. This helps students understand how a poem should be read confidently in front of others. So, I've included the link to the YouTube video here, but it's essentially just the author of The Red Wheelbarrow reading his poem aloud. And I just like the idea of integrating the technology to have the students actually hear a poetry author read his own poem to sort of show how they should do that later on in the lesson after they've written their own poem. So the lesson plan starts out with students will be given a printed version of the poem to refer back to. I've included a copy of that here. Moving on, students will then discuss first in small groups and then in a classroom discussion how the poem uses description. Students will also talk about how the poem made them feel, and we will discuss a little how poetry can create emotions, which I think is an important thing to talk about, especially in sort of younger elementary schools, so they can understand that sooner. So I've included a sample question for the discussion, which is describe how Williams reads his poem in the YouTube video. Does he change his voice and keep the listener engaged, or is he boring to listen to? Keep this in mind when you are writing your personal poem and sharing with your group. So I would have this on a PowerPoint slide, which I would leave up while students have their first small discussion groups and then the classroom discussion so that they can sort of refer back to that. Moving on in the lesson plan, students will then be asked to write their own short poem based on an object found in their bedrooms. I like the idea of using an object found in their bedrooms because it is something that they will probably see or use every day, but this helps them look at it in a new light, which is sort of the purpose of the Red Wheelbarrow poem. So I will explain that I'm looking for 1, an object that is found obviously in their bedroom, 2, a description of the item that can include color, texture, shape, size, etc., and 3, how this object ties into their bedroom. So for example, why is your bed in your bedroom and what do you do in it? Moving on in your lesson plan, after the poems are completed, students will break off into groups of 4 to 5 and will read their poems out loud to each other in a poetry read. So I think it would be fun to encourage students to sit on the floor or move their chairs in a circle and work on their public speaking, which is something that I think is incredibly important in early elementary school, and then 2, sort of change up the environment in which they're getting to talk to each other and discuss. And then finally, they will turn in their poems to be graded by me. So grading will go as follows. Grading will mostly be a completion grade. I'll be watching groups to make sure every student shares their poem and speaks in group discussions, and the actual poems will have to follow the directions and include all the key points I asked for earlier to receive full points.